Hey you, it's finally that time of year. It's spooky time. It's time for Halloweener. Happy Halloweener. It's a time for ghoulies and goblinos and all other sorts. Most importantly, it's a time for horror movies. And if there's one franchise that I have been extensively aware of and just neglectful of and not wanting to watch them because of fear of them just being, well, what they are, it's got to be the Saw franchise. It's got to be the Saw movies. Numerous people tell me, oh, you have to watch the Saw movies. They're so good. They're like my favorite horror movies. They're so great. And I have put it off for quite a long time. Now with the 10th movie just coming out the last few weeks ago, I feel like it was time for me to maybe give this franchise a chance. Now with the 10th movie coming out, yes, there are 10 of these. I decided it's time. Why not watch them? They're a true staple of Halloween time, even more so than Scary Godmother. That movie's a banger, by the way. If you say otherwise, you're just wrong. I'm sorry. Have you seen the animation? That shit's horrifying. So today I have decided to make myself a little tier list of every single Saw movie from best to worst. And since there's freaking so many of these things, I'm going to have to make it pretty quick. I don't want this video being like an hour and a half fucking long. They're not that important. It's not that deep. But yeah, let's get into it. Boom. Tier list time, baby. So we're not going to be doing these from best to worst in order. We're going to be doing these ones from 1 through 10 in order, the way they came out. So we're going to be starting with Saw 1, the original movie. I should probably add this at the beginning. Spoiler warning. I'm going to be talking about every movie, possibly very in depth, possibly with some specifics. So yeah, I mean, obviously it's a review. I'm reviewing all them. Of course I'm going to talk about them. So watching this first movie was honestly just an unexpected surprise for me. I was expecting all of these movies to just be gore and violence and just bullshit and traps and stupid crap, because that's all I've seen. That's all that gets advertised for Saw. And honestly, I'm pretty pleasantly surprised by this movie. So it's real simple for the A-plot. It's two guys stuck in this gross bathroom. They don't know how they got there. They're chained to a wall, and they have some saws. Ooh, cue the title. And that's kind of all I was expecting the movie to be. But then the B plot is actually like a detective whodunit murder mystery that actually lands pretty well. Like, the plot's pretty good. All the detective stuff, they're kind of connected to the two guys that are in the room. You find out all the actual like important information about the Jigsaw killer, about all the stuff. You find out who he is, what they're doing, how the past works, and all of just the other stuff around how these two guys got in the room. And now, having watched all of the other ones, this movie is so grounded and realistic. And I know that a Saw movie that is realistic is hard to believe, trust me, especially if you've seen like 3 through 8. And while the acting can be iffy at best sometimes, it's actually overall pretty good. There's a lot of fun twists and turns for the people in the room and the detectives, and all of the characters just genuinely do feel like they are 2 steps behind, no matter how much they think they're trying to understand everything. It's fun that we don't find out who the Jigsaw killer is until like the very end of the movie. And like all the other Saw movies, some of the deaths and non-deaths, like people surviving, were a little dumb, maybe cheap, you could say. Like at one point, one of the detectives gets his neck just slit straight open and he just starts bleeding like crazy, and he just walks around for a bit, but he's fine. He's good. He's chilling. Don't worry about him. Then in the same exact scene, the detective's partner like chases after the guy that we think is Jigsaw, the guy from earlier that was super obvious, and he shoots him, and he shoots the Jigsaw in the back. And then when he goes in after to like check the body and investigate, he just trips over a tripwire and just gets shot in the fucking face. They do sometimes feel cheap, but it's like they're not bad. They're not super like It's never a point where I'm like, oh, come on, really? Why? Because that does happen a lot in the first. You'll see, trust me. The way these movies are shot also definitely has a very distinct style. Let me just say that. They always have these like sped up, flashing lights and tons of cuts all around these people. And they have like these quick spinning shots where they just revolve around a person anytime they figure something out or are trying to figure out where they are and stuff like that. It's definitely nausea-inducing at some points. I guess it's supposed to lean into the sort of uneasy feel of everything, but I don't think it feels cheap. It feels like a low-budget movie style. Which, I mean, maybe that's what they're going for, especially for the first one. I'm sure the budget was not great. Overall, I feel like this one is definitely the best of the bunch. It's a good plot. The writing's not bad. Every death feels important. And the way that we learn stuff about all of the characters works really naturally and smoothly. And I think it just is pretty good. I'm gonna say it. I'm just gonna say it right now. Saw 1. It's an A tier. Genuinely a pretty good movie. I liked it, and oh boy, does it just go downhill from there. So Saw 2. So when I came into watching these, I figured they were just going to be like Final Destination style. Oh, they're just people dying, people getting hurt, just left and right. That's the movie. That's the point. And the first one kind of derailed me from that fact. Yeah, all of the rest of these pushed me back into that. They saw that people enjoyed the more gruesome and like messed up parts of the first movie, and so they just cranked it to 1 billion. And you can see that jump starting to happen in the second movie. So like in the first movie, there's 2 main plots, one with people in the trap and one of the detectives and police trying to figure out what's going on. But in this movie, the trap has 8 people in it. They're all trapped in this big room. They wake up. They don't know where they are, except for one of them. This is the girl that they talked to in the first movie when they're trying to investigate who it is. She was put in this weird bear trap thing that cranks her mouth open and crushes her skull all at once. But she gets out of it. She lived. So when she's back in, I definitely thought it was a little weird. I definitely was like, okay, so she got again? It's almost like the Taken movies, where it's like, by the third one, it's like, really? I feel like it's your fault at this point. But essentially, all 8 of these people are trapped in a house. There's gas coming in that's going to slowly kill them, and they have to get out in 3 hours. One of these people is the son of the main detective that's trying to investigate all these cases. So the dad, played by Donnie Wahlberg of all people, surprised they actually got some pretty big name actors in this, even though his acting was not great. Or maybe it was just the writing for him. I mean, you can only do so much. But essentially, this house that they're trapped in is just full of different booby traps and puzzles. And well, I call them puzzles. They're mainly just like hurt yourself as much as possible to a point of death to try and get yourself an antidote for the poison that's coming into the house. And each of these different puzzles has to slightly do with like why these people were put in the room, why they're bad people, what they're being punished for. And that's kind of the overarching plot that sort of goes for most of these movies. The guy that is Jigsaw, John Kramer, sort of has this mentality of, oh, I'm not killing people. I'm just trying to rehabilitate them. I'm trying to get them to think differently, rewire themselves. I'm not murdering them. They did this to themselves. But they didn't. You put them in here, homie. Like, you can't just absolve yourself from all of it. You are not the good guy. And that happens so much in these movies where he's like, I'm just trying to make them better people. I'm just trying to make them better for themselves. But he's not. He's just killing these people. And I gotta say, a lot of the traps are kind of cheap in this movie. Like, you're just gonna die. Some of them you like have to die. Like, the one guy crawls into this massive furnace to grab some of the antidotes, and when he grabs it, it just closes and turns on. He just dies. He just, fuck you. Why not? And then John will just be like, oh, you should have played by the rules. If you played by the rules, none of this would have happened. No, they played by the rules, man. What do you mean? The only one that feels fair for is Donnie Wahlberg, who he's told to just chill out and everything will be fine. His son will be fine. And he's not wrong. The end of this movie has a pretty cool twist. It was like one of the only actually good twists in the movie of all of the stuff in the room. It actually took place in the past, like a couple days ago. And his son has been trapped right next to the detectives the whole time, safe and sound, just stuck in a safe with like oxygen supply feeding to him. And if Donnie didn't do anything, he would have gotten his son back. But as a cop, he kind of had to investigate everything. Yeah, most of the traps in this are pretty fucked up, but they're still pretty grounded. Like, they're oh, don't use this key, and then they use the key, and they just get shot in the fucking face. It's fucked up, but it's definitely way more realistic than a lot of the rest of them. But for real, the one thing that just sticks with me, man, the fucking syringe pit, man. Fuck that. No. What are you, who thought of that? I literally could not watch that. It was so fucked up. One of the things that made me want to do this tier list was I saw a thing on TikTok, which was a behind the scenes for that clip. They were like, oh, he throws her into the syringe pit and she just gets jabbed and has to dig through like a giant pile of dirty syringes. And I'm like, yeah, that's fucking horrible. Awful. Oh my God, what the fuck? And then he says, but it wasn't bad enough. We didn't think it was hitting hard enough. So we added a bunch of crunching glass noises to make it seem even better. Sure, man, it certainly made it fucking worse. What the fuck is wrong with you? If I could give this movie a rating based just on that, it's straight to F tier. Straight to F tier. Fuck you. No, that was the worst trap in like the whole franchise. I genuinely, mainly because it was so realistic and grounded that would just fucking ruin me. But for real, fuck that trap. Ew, no, stop. The main thing I don't like about this movie, other than the detectives, you know, including everyone's just fucking stupid. No one is thinking. No one is trying to make a plan. Everyone is just out for each other's throat. And I don't get it. Even the people in the trap, they're all thinking it's like, I have to kill everyone else. I'm the only one that can get out. I have to survive. There's no way I can work with these people. Like, one guy goes around just killing people at the end. He realizes that there's numbers on their back of their necks, which I don't know how they didn't realize that earlier. In the tape, they said like a super simple riddle where it's like, where they're like, oh, the combination to the safe, it's in the back of your heads. And it's like, no one thought, oh, what if it's on the back of our heads? Which it was. But the dude just goes around and just starts killing people so that he can see what's on the back of their necks. Like, just ask them to turn around, man. There were so little twists in this movie. It was just so straightforward and felt like it was trying to be like aloof, and it just was dumb. The only twist was that the kid was actually safe and sound and everything was in the past, which, okay, sure, man. Donnie goes to investigate the house when he finds out where it is, and it's empty. And when he gets down and hunts through and when he gets to the bottom of the house where he thinks his son will be, it's the OG room from the original movie where he gets trapped. It certainly wasn't a bad movie. It wasn't great. It was far from the first movie. I would give it maybe a 6 out of 10. It's okay. I definitely didn't hate watching this movie, other than the syringe pit. Fuck the syringe pit. Whoever wrote the syringe pit, I hope you get put into a saw trap yourself for what you've done to me. But overall, not a horrible watch. I'm putting 2. It's in B tier. I gotta say, it's in B tier. Now we're to Saw 3. So I've been recording for like almost an hour now, so I need to get freaking moving through these. Oh my God. But that should be easy, because this is where the movies just start getting fucking ridiculous and stupid. This is where it just stops being like a detective and like whodunit and along with the gory stuff, and it just goes for killing people. That's it. It's just gore for the sake of gore. It's not even enjoyable, honestly, to watch. There are so many scenes of traps that just genuinely have no point to be in the movie until they get re-mentioned like 2 or 3 movies later, just out of pocket, probably because they couldn't think of anything else to write about. So in this movie, essentially there are 2 plots once again. It's between a couple, Jeff and Lynn. Jeff is the one that gets put into a bunch of traps and has to work his way through to get out. And Lynn, who is a nurse or a doctor, or she works in a hospital, is kidnapped to try and help John, who was diagnosed with a brain tumor. So Jeff's plot is really, really straightforward. Lynn and his son was hit by a car recently and was killed, and he cannot forgive anyone. He is still horribly upset about it, which, I mean, is fair, but he is essentially out for revenge for everyone. And that's what he has to go through. He has to face all of the people that did him wrong in that whole situation, and he has to learn to forgive them. And this is the start of where these Saw movies, they're not even like directly punishing the person that deserves it or is supposed to be being punished. They just put like people near him into traps, and it's his job to get them out. Like, he just has to watch them be tortured. He's not actually physically being tortured. He just has to be the one to watch them die, which I feel like is just like a cheap way to keep them alive while also showing a bunch of deaths for all the gore fans that watch these movies. Like, you can't kill off the main character, so why not just kill a bunch of people related to him? As for Lynn's plot, she's taken in to like the warehouse where they're running and watching all of the stuff going down with Jeff. And surprise, surprise, John, the Jigsaw killer, has an accomplice. It's Amanda, the chick that was in the trap from the first movie and the one that knew what was going on in the second movie. She's the one that's been helping and behind everything that's going on. So she forces Lynn to try and like do surgery, do her doctor stuff, and watch over John to try and make sure that he doesn't die. And for some reason, Amanda makes her do like straight up open brain surgery. She makes her like cut open his skull, and they just show everything. They don't hold back. Like, why? You nasty. And the writers try to like play off the fact that everything is so heavy-handed and kind of forced by, I think, making this whole idea overarching through the story of that Amanda genuinely doesn't know what she's doing and is just kind of insane. Like, after Lynn does the surgery and tries to help John, John's like, okay, you've helped me. You are free to go. Amanda, let her go. And Amanda's like, nah, fuck you. Why give her freedom? Why not me? Why not me, huh? Why are you doing this to me? So she pulls out a fucking gun and is like, nah, I'm gonna kill you. All while at the end of all the traps for Jeff, he also gets a gun. And right when Amanda ends up shooting Lynn, Jeff bursts into the room and shoots Amanda. It's like, okay, so we're just killing everyone. Sure, man. Why not? Everyone dies. So after everyone dies and Jeff is left to watch his wife slowly bleed out from the gunshot wound, John just gets so smug. And this goes on for all the rest of the movies, man. He's like, oh, I'm so smart. You guys are fools. Why didn't you just follow the rules? Why didn't you think? You gotta learn to forgive and forget, you smooth brain. Amanda, you thought I was actually your partner? You are just a tool, you dumb bitch. And all this trash talk makes Jeff freak out and lash out on John. And then after, they do tapes for each of the people that get put in traps, and the tapes sort of explain why you're there, explain what you have to do, explain the rules. But from this point forward, since John is dead, it's assumed that he just made like hundreds of these things, all in advance, all knowing exactly what was going to happen, knowing exactly how everything was going to go down, who he was getting, when they were going to like get finished stuff, what every outcome of every trap was going to be. It was fucking ridiculous. So Jeff plays the tape and he's like, see, I told you, you shouldn't have been stupid. Your wife would have a head if you would have just listened. Idiot. Gorsh. This ending is so convoluted and dumb. I genuinely laughed at just how stupid it felt. No one learns anything. Jeff's still a spiteful bitch, and fuck you. The movie's over. That's it. Sadly, this is not the worst one. It's down there, but it's not the worst movie out there. But it's really not good. So I'm giving it like 4 out of 10. Saw 3. I'm sorry, you're D tier. Saw 4. Okay, so firstly, in this movie, from the beginning, I was like, I swear to Christ, if John just is alive, I'm gonna fucking lose it. That's it. Like, if he just somehow lived getting tore the shit up and literally showing him dying in the last movie, I'm gonna be mad. And thankfully, they didn't do that. He is dead. He is a goner. Start out the movie with him in a morgue, and they're doing an autopsy. Like, first of all, who ordered an autopsy on this man? No one cares. He's a murderer. You know that and they don't even like investigate the massive wound that actually killed him. They just noticed the surgery scar on his head, and they full up scalp this man on film. They show everything. What the fuck? They just start trying to remove like every organ. Morticians do not do that. It's just another opening for them to just show obsessive gore for no good reason, and it's ridiculous. The morticians decide to open up his stomach, and when they cut it open, just a bunch of black sludge comes out along with a tape that he seemingly swallowed before the end of the last movie. So the main plot of this one is there was a detective that was working on these cases whose friend was attacked in the second movie after trying to investigate a bunch of shit, and he is horribly upset about what happened. And his entire arc of the movie is you can't save everyone, which, I mean, he's a cop. Why would he not at least try? That's kind of his job, and it just feels really dumb. This whole movie is just him being forced to like watch someone get fucked up and watch someone die, and he just is supposed to sit there and just take it. The subplot of this one is that Donnie Wahlberg is actually alive after the second movie, and him, along with another detective who came in to investigate the morticians, they're trapped in a saw trap, and Rigg has to go save them. Or does he? Ooh. This movie is just constant wave after wave of Rigg just being fucking tortured mentally rather than physically, where he just either has to hook people into traps himself or just has to watch people fucking die, all being chased down by a bunch of like FBI agents who were hired to watch this case. This movie is literally just like a wild goose chase of just each scene being a new trap, and then the FBI comes in and investigates the trap, and they're trying to find Rigg. We gotta stop him. We gotta save him. And another thing that they do in this movie, because John is dead, and apparently they just cannot fucking let him die and write a new plot, they just do so many flashbacks and shit to like the first and second, and hell, even the third movie, where apparently John has planned everything up to this point, and he's so smart, and he has so many people involved in helping him, and they're trying to just confuse and make every other movie more complex, even the first one, and it just makes everything feel less earned, and it just makes everything kind of feel stupid. It makes it feel like they're just like hand feeding everything to you as a viewer. Like you can't think for yourself, and you can't possibly let anything just be what it is. It has to have 8 different reasons and meanings to it. And at the end, Rigg finally gets to the 2 cops that were set in the trap, and when he rushes in the room, he dies and Donnie dies, and then the other guy that was in the trap just unties himself and is like, "You fool, I'm the new Jigsaw." It's like, what the fuck, man? And then they do a bunch of cutbacks to like the past movies where it's like he was behind everything. Like he helped Amanda and John with the past stuff because Amanda could never lift up all the dead bodies. She's a tiny little woman. They need a big, strong man to do everything. So he's also behind all this shit. It's just so goddamn convoluted. I just can't, man. And to end off part of the subplot, one of the 2 FBI agents stumbles upon the room from the third movie, like right as John was dying. So apparently this movie was taking place at the exact time as the third movie, and when he walks in, it's right when Jeff is shooting Amanda, and he ends up then shooting Jeff, and it's just like, they can't let anyone enjoy anything in these movies. They just ruin the previous movies the further they go on. This movie was just real bad. Not as bad as the third one, but it was pretty fucking bad. It was just boring, honestly. If I could say anything, it genuinely was just kind of boring. It felt so like by the numbers, like the most ChatGPT generated Saw movie that you could think of. And most of all, when I looked at the cast list before watching this movie, it had Devin Bostick, the man, the myth, the Roderick, listed as one of the characters, and I didn't see him at all. I thought I just missed him. But it turns out he was just some random background character that was in like a 1 second long shot in the background just going. That's it. They gave him a full fucking name and everything in the credits. He was barely in this movie. I was so mad. I wanted to see some Devin Bostic. You know what? I was going to give this one a 4.5. No, it's a 4 now. Just, that pissed me off in the future now. I'd say it's slightly better than the third one, so I'm going to throw it in C tier. End of C tier. Like, far down on C tier, Saw 4. So Saw 5. This movie is all about Mark, the cop that supposedly was helping Jigsaw the whole time through all of this. This is his story. This movie starts right at the end of the last one, but also cuts back in time so much all the time. So it starts off with Mark leaving the trap from the last movie, and the FBI guy is in the room with Jeff that he just killed him, and he gets trapped in. And this movie basically just pits Mark and the FBI guy together. I had to look up his name. The FBI guy's name is Peter. I'm gonna say Peter from now on, so I don't have to keep saying FBI guy. So this movie also introduces John's ex-wife Jill, and she works with Mark to try and do a bunch of these jigsaw traps and not get caught by the FBI. So the main plot of this one, there's 5 people trapped in a room. It's kind of similar to the second movie, but it's a little more straightforward. They just go room by room by room, and they have to pass all of the tests to get out. And also, like the second one, while they could all just work together and figure all this shit out, they don't realize that until the last trap when there's 2 of them left. The whole movie is just them backstabbing each other and trying to get at each other and trying to, like, save themselves by sacrificing off someone else, which is really dumb. If they thought for even like half a second, they'd realize that they could all just get through this and live, and it would be easier anyways. But yeah, I mean, I could just go through the whole plot of this fucking movie, but it's just, it's so dumb. It's just Mark and Peter going after each other, Mark doing shit, looking sus as fuck, trying to hide his own identity and hide all the clues that point towards him when the FBI is hunting for him. And Peter somehow, like, knows instantly that it's him, so he's hunting down Mark. Mark even convinces the rest of the FBI to make them think that Peter is the Jigsaw killer and not him. It's just another wild goose chase of one person chasing another person, and then cut to some traps, and then we go back to chasing them, and then cut to another trap, and then it's so bad. This one is really bad. What makes me hate it the most is the very end. Finally, Peter thinks he's tracked down Mark, and he comes up and finds this final trap that's actually made for him. He has to get into this glass box, and supposedly, if he does this, that, and the other thing, he'll get out and be free. But he's not gonna fucking listen. He's not gonna do that. So he hides behind a door and waits for Mark to come in after him. But when Mark comes in, Peter pushes him into the box and is like, I got you, you fool. And Mark starts freaking out like, what the fuck? Get me out of here. All for it to be part of Mark's plan all along. This is the movie where I started to realize, man, just whatever they say, just think the opposite. And you're right. It's just, it's literally just to a point where it's just think no and it's yes. And it just is dumb. So the glass box starts just dropping down into the floor, and the walls start coming in to crush Peter. And that's the end of the movie. You see Mark's smug face as he drops into the floor, and you watch Peter just get smushed to death. That's it. End movie. Roll credits. These movies genuinely just keep getting worse and worse and worse, and I don't know why I kept watching after this point. This one literally made me take a break for like a day. I just couldn't fucking force myself to watch any more of these movies. They don't care about making the plot interesting whatsoever anymore. They just want to show gore and be like, ooh, gotcha neck. You thought this was happening. It's actually something else. Literally, this was easily the worst one so far. It gets like a 3 out of 10, maybe 3.5. Maybe. Saw 5 gets an F tier. And I don't even feel bad about that. It's that bad. Saw 6. Okay, this one has Devin Bostic listed in as a main character on the cast list, and he's actually in this one, so big ups a little bit, but he does really only play like a super minor character. Well, kinda, but I can't necessarily say I'm happy with him in this movie. So this movie starts out with kind of one of the weirdest and most fucked up intro traps, where it's not just like one person dying. This is the one with the pound of flesh. So there's two people on either end of this cage, and they have to cut off as much flesh as they can. Whoever cuts off more wins. And opening on this scene, the video that shows the way that Jigsaw says hello is so goofy and funny. I paused and just laughed for like a minute, and I replayed it like over and over. He just goes, hello. It's so good. It's like all the previous movies, they have to, for the first 10 minutes, re-show everything that just happened in the fucking last movie so we can catch up with what Mark's up to from the last one. I love that they act like anyone that's watching the 6th Saw movie is anyone that genuinely hasn't seen the other 5. Like, we know what happened. We get it. This must just be to get to that hour and a half runtime. Otherwise, I don't see a reason for putting it in there. Like, no one but die-hard fans are watching this shit anymore. So this one has more of Mark on his shit, going against the FBI, trying to hide that he's Jigsaw, that he's the main guy now, and that's kind of half of the whole plot. Oh boy, we got another goose chase type, and where they're just back and forth. Oh, it can't be him. Is it him? I don't know. We should watch him. Is it him? Yep, it's him. Wow. And then we have the trap side of the movie, where it's about the head of this one health insurance company, where apparently he wouldn't help John, the actual Jigsaw, get a experimental sort of treatment for his cancer. He wouldn't pay for it, and he's overall just kind of a scummy dude that just fucks over people that he doesn't want to give health insurance policies to, because it's kind of just how health insurance really is. So for this whole side of the movie, they go again for the whole, he's not being tortured, but he has to watch all of the other people around him be tortured. And in this case, it's all of his employees and stuff that work all around him. In order for him to live, he has to either kill a specific person or choose one of many people to save. And some of those people that we think he has to save are trapped in a completely different room, one of which is the boy, Devin Bostic. Oh boy. Basically, the insurance guy has to get to the end of all these traps to let them out, or so we think. He goes through a bunch of bullshit, and one of them is just goofy as hell. There's like 6 of his employees just tied to this like playground merry-go-round, like one of the ones that you push around in a circle and then hop on. And then there's just a shotgun on one of the positions, and it spins around and shoots him in the face if he doesn't select to save them. It's so dumb. There's a bunch of John flashbacks again, because of course they just can't let him fucking go. Most of it is to show that like Jill was not part of anything, but she could see him doing all of his evil shit, and we find out like how he slowly became the Jigsaw killer and stuff like that. They just keep trying to make John seem like a reasonable dude that was doing all of this shit for the greater good, but he's just not. He's just some sadistic dude that is pissed that he got cancer and is taking it out on everyone else. So the insurance guy makes it to the end of all the traps. He lives, he saves a couple people, and he gets to the end cages where Devin Bostic and his mom and the insurance guy's sister, I believe, are trapped in these cages with acid that's going to pour all over them. Only for us to find out that the acid's not going to go on them. It's up for Devin Bostic and his mom to decide whether to pour it onto the insurance guy, who apparently let their husband/father die when he needed to get treatment. She's pissed that he like inadvertently killed her husband, so she just gets to murder this man freely, because why not? And she can't do it, but then Devin Bostic runs up and is like, nah, fuck this, and pulls the lever and just murders him. And then the final scene is between Mark and Jill. Jill double crosses Mark and puts him in the head crusher thing that was in the first movie, and to buy some time, he shoves his face in between 2 grates, so when it goes off, it doesn't instantly kill him. And the movie just ends with him just getting out. That's it. This one wasn't, like, awful. It kind of just felt meh. The only good thing is it didn't try to overcomplicate any of the actual plot of the last movies. It went even further back with the flashbacks showing, like, the origins of John, which weren't, like, super interesting to begin with, but at least it didn't ruin what was already happening and ruin everything that came before it. So it was fine, I guess. So Saw 6 gets like a, I don't know, 4.5. We're going to place it in C tier. Yeah, let's put it not quite at the top of C tier, but still C tier nonetheless. Saw 7. Okay, so this one has like a subtitle called Saw 3D. Right when I saw that, I thought of Spy Kids 3D, where they had all the dumb like effects of like screws and stuff flying off into the screen, and I was hoping so much that we would get like a bunch of stupid effects of like blood coming at you, and oh, the guts are flying right at you, oh, the springs, man. And genuinely there was a good amount of that, and it made me giggle every time it happened. And all I could think of was Spy Kids 3, and how somehow, while being a bad movie, it was still miles better than any of these movies. So all of these movies start out with like a kind of disconnected trap that doesn't necessarily have to do with the plot of the main movie, but it slightly connects, or like one of the characters comes back slightly. But in this movie, the trap literally has no connection. It's just this chick and her 2 boyfriends that she's cheating on both of them with, and she just gets murked because, you know, bros before hoes get sawed in half, bitch. Like, I don't know, man. So once again, in this movie, we're following Mark again. He's back on his bullshit. All while meanwhile, Jill is trying to play like damsel in distress and get protected by the FBI. And this movie kind of tries to go back to almost its original roots, and it focuses a lot more on the police again and like the sort of detective side of all of this shit going on, and how they're dealing with all the traps that they're finding and how they're being threatened by trying to deal with them. The first trap has Chester Bennington in it, like the guy from Linkin Park. Rest in peace, by the way. But he has to like unglue himself from a car seat, or just everyone dies. And he does, and everyone just fucking dies horribly and brutally. I think mostly so they could just show all those 3D guts and stuff, get their money's worth on that 3D content. But this leads like the FBI into their like actual investigations and stuff like that. The main trap plot of this one is a guy that is going on this big media tour saying that he was part of a jigsaw trap, but he survived and got out. The only problem is he was never in a trap, and he's actually lying just for publicity and fame. He goes to a bunch of like help groups to try and give people like moral support and try and like share his story, like an AA group, but for jigsaw people. But in one of the meetings, we actually get to see one of the guys from the original movie, Lawrence, the one that actually ends up using the saw in the first movie. Cue the credits. He's now part of the support groups, and he's actually back to being a character again. Similar to the last movie, Bobby gets got, he gets put in a trap, but it's not for him. He has to go through and save all of his employees and people and publicists and stuff like that, because why torture him when you can torture all of his friends and family, you know? In this one, the traps get fucking ridiculous. Like, they are some insane feats of engineering, and it is insane. Like, how did John plan for this so far ahead? It just doesn't make much sense. I get John was like supposedly an engineer before he became Jigsaw, but like, come on, man, this is some ridiculous shit. Bobby has to go through this gauntlet of watching a bunch of people fucking die. He is horrible at it, by the way. While the insurance guy was able to get like a couple people to live, Bobby just kills fucking everyone. Everyone dies. He can't withstand even a little bit of pain. He's a little bitch. He sucks, and I guess that fits his character, being like a liar and all that shit, and just being a pussy. But nah, he genuinely just sucks at everything right now. Anyways, apparently Mark has been watching all of the people doing the FBI investigations the whole time, and he's a step ahead of everyone and tricks them into his warehouse, where he just set up a massive machine gun to just pop up out of nowhere and kill everyone. Sure, man. And then he uses a body bag to like sneak back into the mortuary of the, apparently, which is in the FBI precinct. He then goes on like a Joel from Last of Us style rampage, just going through the entire building, just killing everyone, just so he can get to Jill, who happens to be in the precinct at the time. And he finds Jill and starts doing his evil villain monologue, because he's the Joker now. Jill ends up fucking stabbing him, and so he just gets even more pissed. He chases after her, and when he finds her, he just like straight up kicks her in the gooch and then drags her off. Like, that's it. He's not playing around anymore. It was such a fucking goofy kick and funny scene. Inadvertently, I'm sure. Then Mark hooks Jill up to the trap that she got him in, the big head crusher thing from the first movie, and actually ends up killing Jill. Big rip to Jill. She did nothing wrong, let's be honest. Mark thinks he's real cool and turns to the camera and is like, game over. And then he goes to go like burn down all of his evidence that he has, only for him to get attacked while leaving by a supposedly Jigsaw people. And apparently they needed to add a fucking nother twist to this whole franchise. Apparently Lawrence, the guy from the first movie that was in the survivors meeting, he's apparently been working alongside Jigsaw without Mark knowing, without Amanda knowing, the whole time. They're like, oh, how do you think they did all the weird, crazy surgical stuff? Putting like keys inside people's bodies and hooking them up to weird like medical contraptions without killing them. Oh, it had to be Lawrence because he's a doctor. I don't think anyone cared to know how they did it. He's made the most insane fucking death traps known to humanity. But you think he can't do some basic stitches? And what's even funnier is he doesn't come back after this. Literally, he does not show up whatsoever. So them making it seem like he's an important character for the whole franchise literally means nothing. But essentially, he gets Mark and drags him down to the original room from the first movie that he was in and chains him up to the wall like he was, just to leave him there and starve and die. As he's leaving the room, he turns and hits him with a no you, game over as well, and then just shuts off the lights and leaves. People that wrote that must have thought that they were so smart. They were such badasses. Yo, this is such a cool scene. Look at me go. But it was just so dumb, man. This movie was like, okay, I guess. Like, it wasn't horrible. A lot of the traps were like somewhat reasonable. Some of them were ridiculous. They really liked these giant like spiked tubes that look like giant syringes to like just impale people, which was weird and unnecessary, honestly. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly no Saw 5. I'm thinking we put it right here. I'm going to move 6 over a little bit. I'm going to put 7 right before 6. I think that's where it rightfully belongs. I'm going to leave a space just before it, just in case. We've still got 3 movies left. Now, Saw 8. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I didn't really think all that much of this one. At this point, I was honestly just getting really tired. This was actually the last one I had watched because I heard the last 2 were kind of disconnected from the franchise a little bit, so I didn't feel the need to watch this one, and it was on a different streaming app, and I didn't feel like switching over in the middle of everything. I don't know. I was also a bit inebriated when watching this one, so I didn't like... I mean, it's hard not to be when watching these movies, Jesus Christ. If you're not drunk or high watching these movies, like, what are you doing? I asked myself that every time I was watching these. I mean, it feels very similar to the 5th movie. There's a bunch of people in a trap. They can all work together, but they end up not working together. They all end up just dying in consecutive traps. Like I said, Lawrence just doesn't come back, even though I was expecting that. He was placed up to be such an important character in the end of the last movie, so I don't know what they were doing with that one. There's more BS with like the cops, but they aren't like super important to this story. Mainly one of the pathologists is known to be like an actual super fan of Jigsaw and ends up being like one of the evil people in the movie. Everyone ends up dying, and there was like 4 really shitty twists in the movie. I mean, it wasn't great. It wasn't good. This one was like fine, I guess. It gets like a 4. I mean, I don't know if I want to put it in D tier, but it's certainly at least the bottom of C. So I guess that's where I'll put it like, we'll put it on the line in between. How about that? Saw 9. So this movie is kind of a spin-off of all the other movies. It's called Spiral, and it was an instant to streaming, I believe. And this one doesn't actually involve like John Kramer at all. They mentioned his name a couple times because the person in this movie that does all the killings kind of uses the Jigsaw vibe, and they're like, oh, are they connected? I gotta say, this movie certainly at least looks better than most of the other ones. For some reason, all of the other movies use this horrible color grading and just super jarring editing. Not to say there's not weird editing in this one. There's a lot of just like unnecessary shaky cam while the character stares into the screen. It's kind of stupid, but it definitely is visually a step up from all of the other ones. This one also has like big name actors in it. I know we had like Donnie Wahlberg and stuff like that in before, but this one stars Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson. I don't know who got them to sign on to this, but they deserve a raise big time, because there's absolutely no reason for the Saw franchise to be able to get them as actors. Essentially, Chris Rock is the son of Samuel L. Jackson, who is like a renowned and great police chief who has recently retired. And one of the cops at their precinct was just attacked in a Jigsaw-style crime. And this cop happens to be one of Chris Rock's friends from the precinct. They were pretty close. So he wants to take the lead on this investigation. As for like the recordings that they get to get like the clues and stuff like that, for some reason this movie uses this like really bad like text-to-speech voice that just sounds so unmenacing and just really goofy, and it just really took me out of the seriousness of this movie every time they got a new tape. But anyways, for this investigation, Chris Rock gets to take the lead of it, but he has to take on a new rookie that gets to be his partner for the whole thing. Chris Rock, doesn't trust everyone in the precinct. They all think he's a little bitch boy because his dad was the chief and he got it easy and whatever. This rookie guy is the only one that kind of like understands where he's coming from. This one definitely shies away from all of the like extravagant traps. It does try and stay somewhat grounded in all of the gore. Like, they don't show much gore at all. They show a little bit here and there, but it's a lot more tasteful than most of the other movies. I guess that goes along with the whole it being a little visually better, which is weird because it was directed by the same guy that did like 2 through 4. So one by one, all of the cops at Chris Rock's precinct are getting picked off, and Chris Rock has to figure out who's taking them, who's doing this. And for some reason, his dad goes missing. Samuel L. Jackson just disappears like halfway through the movie. This ends up in Chris Rock finding out that it was his rookie partner all along that was behind everything. He was a victim of like police brutality when he was a kid, which was shown like earlier in the movie by Chris Rock's old partner. When he joined, he felt bad for Chris Rock's character and wanted to show the police that they need to be more respectful and be like good cops and not be doing stupid shit. He trapped and tied up Samuel L. Jackson up in the air, and it's like draining the blood from all of his body, and Chris Rock has to get him out. And the way that he has to get him out is so funny. The rookie gives him a gun with 1 bullet in it and is like, all right, now to save your dad, shoot this target. It's like a little fucking carnival game. Like, it's so dumb. But anyways, he shoots the target. He drops Samuel L. Jackson to the ground, and the rookie guy starts trying to get away. Samuel L. Jackson's like, don't let him get away. Go get him. So Chris Rock chases after him and starts just beating the shit out of him. The police get a tip, and so they go to investigate the building that Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson are being held in. And when they rush in, rehash this one line that the rookie gave earlier in one of like the Jigsaw messages, where he's like, you guys are all puppets to me. I pull the strings here. And Samuel L. Jackson just gets lifted back up into the air, and pulls his arm out, and a shotgun just comes out from behind his arm and points at the cops coming in. So they just light him up, not even thinking that this guy was the old chief of police and like anything going on. They just light him up, and that's just how the movie ends. Chris Rock's like, no, as the rookie guy gets away, and that's it. The movie ends. Okay, up until the very end, and the fact that the twist villain was not really a twist. It was kind of the obvious thing. They tried to make a lot of the other cops seem like really sus and like extra mean and weird throughout the movie, but then they really don't do anything with that whatsoever. There's one guy that's like just super brooding and just suspicious as fuck the whole movie, and literally nothing happens to him. But I don't know. The movie was fine. It definitely felt like one of the first few movies. It definitely felt a lot more grounded. All the traps were a lot more reasonable. It didn't feel as over the top, and I feel like that's definitely a strength for these movies. I'd honestly give this one like a 5, maybe 5.5 out of 10. It was not bad. Certainly wasn't great. So I think I'm going to place it like low B tier. I guess the lowest, because it's definitely better than 7, but it's still not great. So I'm going to put it right easy, just in case we want to place 10 either here or here. We got to leave some space. Saw 10. We finally made it to the end. This is the new one that just came out. It's still in theaters, and I definitely went to the theaters to see it. I definitely saw it in fully legal ways. Crazy that Thanos and Goku showed up in it, right? Illegal streaming is crazy these days. But for this one, the writers finally realized that we don't want to just see the same shit rehashed over and over and then flashing back to John and like all the behind the scenes shit that was happening in the other movies, because no one really cares. And it also stops them from just fucking up all the timelines of everything and just going here, then there, and back and forth all through time, just over and over. And it just makes everything so much more complicated for no reason. So they decided to just fully go back in time. This movie takes place between the first and second movie. And firstly, before I get into like the plot of everything, I want to say the fact that like all of the advertising for this movie was the scene of the person like in the chair strapped down, and there's the big tubes like supposedly going to suck out their eyes and shit like that. It ended up being like a dream. Like it was just all in their imagination. It was just it literally didn't happen, and it was only for like 3 minutes in the movie. So I don't get why that was the main advertising point of this movie. It's probably because it's like the actually most, I guess, interesting and intense trap that's in the movie, because this movie, it goes back to its roots. It's a lot more tame. It's a lot more realistic than the later ones get. But I don't know, I feel like just the advertising team kind of, I don't know whether they dropped the ball or it was just good skeezy marketing. I don't know, but I guess it's fine. It's whatever. So this movie goes to explain a little bit more about like the whole John having cancer thing. So they play with the fact of the whole John going to the insurance guy to try and get help with this experimental cancer treatment. And they go in to John actually going for the experimental treatment because he hears about it from this guy. It's in Mexico. He has to go, and it saved this guy's life. It worked. He's now cancer free. So John goes down, he goes through the treatment, and everything seems to have worked. But then he finds out that it was all just a scam. He goes back to the place that did the treatment, and it was just empty. It was all just a farce. They were just taking his money, and fuck you, they leave. So John, being the sadistic fuck that he is, he needs to get his revenge. Only this time, it's actually like kind of reasonable. Like, it is so fucked up to try and trick people into thinking you're gonna get rid of their cancer and then just take their money and leave. So he gets all the people involved with the whole, like, fake treatment scam and puts them in traps. So each of the people is tasked in each of these sections of the trap to have to endure some sort of pain so that they can move on. We find out that all of these people are just super shitty and only want to save themselves, and so they end up like killing each other and getting people stuck in traps and shit like that, and just not playing by the rules. All for, in the end, there's a kind of good twist, I guess. So they're able to find John, and apparently Amanda's there too. John called down Amanda and like, yo, I need some backup to help set up this stuff. And they end up being able to like double cross him and trick him into getting put into one of his traps. All for this to, of course, be part of John's plan. While he's in the trap and they all go to investigate like his warehouse where he's keeping all of his like money and resources and stuff like that. They get locked in the warehouse, and the building just fills with toxic gas. I don't know where he's getting all this toxic gas from. This man should be on every watch. Well, he probably is on every watch list, but still. Then the trap unlocks from John, and him and Amanda and this little Mexican kid that they've met and befriended get out and are free to go. All the bad guys lose, and I guess technically John's kind of a good guy in this. This movie kind of feels like, I don't want to say it feels like the Equalizer movies, because it definitely doesn't, but it feels like John definitely has a lot more reasoning. If this was what they were kind of going for all of the other movies, then maybe he'd be a little more of a sympathetic villain. But in all the other ones, John's just killing people, man. John's just going off. Like, it does not even compare. It's just definitely a nice change of pace to what 3 through 8 became. I think I'm going to give this movie like a 6 out of 10-ish. I'd say it's arguable to say whether it's like on par with the second movie or maybe just slightly below. I'd say it's probably like a toss-up between the second movie and this one on which one's better or worse. But I think I'm going to just place it right here in this empty spot we have and call it a day. So that's it. I did it. Here's your tier list. This is it. 1, 2, 10, 9, 7, 6, 4, 8, 3, 5. The official and truly correct tier list, of course, as from a Saw aficionado. Did I enjoy watching all of these movies for 4 days, like back to back to back? No. Am I glad I watched through all of them for like the culture of it? Yeah, no. Am I glad that I can say I've watched all of these so I never have to watch any of them ever again? Sure, yeah. I mean, that's like the best you're going to get out of me. The last few before like 9 and 10, honestly, but like 3 through 8, they were a slog to get through, man. The issue was that they made these movies like every year, back to back to back to back. They had no time, and I feel like the times where they actually took a few years to develop a script, to actually shoot a good movie, they didn't turn out half bad. And I hope that if they go for a Saw 11, which I don't know where they'd go from here considering 10 was kind of like a prequel just shoved right in the middle of all the other plots. If they take the time, like 2, maybe 3 years to make another movie, it's probably going to be okay. If they shove out another one next year just because money, it's probably going to be bad. In the end, I feel like these ratings may be a little harsh for like a die-hard Saw fan, if there is any. I feel like if you are a die-hard Saw fan, that there's something wrong with you. Sorry, but it's true. Let me know what you guys think of these ratings in the comments. Whether you liked it, whether you like any of the movies in particular, whether you like the new one in particular, I guess. Let me know if you think Devin Bostic is the next great actor of our generation. I don't know. Either way, happy Halloween, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.